The Draugr Plague, Oathbreakers. Season 1, Episode 12. The floor did not stop opening. For one breath after the first hands came through, everyone in the hollow farm understood that shelter had been a lid. Then the lid broke in earnest. Planks buckled, nails shrieked out of beams. The hearthstones tipped, spilling ash over the split floor. Hands rose where children had laughed over milk, where old feet had warmed beside embers, where Ulfric had set his back to the debt beam and believed vigilance might be enough. "Out!" Ulfric shouted. Children first, weak next. Armed last. No one moved in that clean order. Terror made its own law. A man shoved toward the door and tripped over a bedding roll. A woman tried to lift 3 children at once and dropped one. Soren hacked at a grey hand gripping his boot. Freya seized the fallen child by the back of his tunic and threw him toward the yard as gently as throwing could be done. The child slid through snow and screamed. Screaming meant alive. Leif braced the Covenant oar across a widening crack. Dead fingers curled around it from below. The carved law held for a breath, then bent. Ulfric brought his axe down on the wrist, not to kill, because killing had become a word too small, but to break the grip long enough for Leif to pull free. "Do not lose the oar," Ulfric said. Leif gasped. "I have grown fond of law when it has wood in it." "Then carry it." Astrid stood beside the door, one hand against the frame, head lifted as if listening to a storm under the house. "Left side," she cried. "The boards there are hollow." Freya obeyed before seeing. She drove her shoulder into a woman frozen in place and pushed her toward the right. A heartbeat later, the left board split and hands burst through in a cluster, grey fingers clawing at empty air. The greed bound did not climb like living men. They reached first, as if wanting came before body. Their hands wore coin and ring, debt tag and rusted chain. Some fingers had fused around metal so completely that hand and treasure seemed grown from the same cold root. They made no speech. Their mouths, when faces pressed up through cracks, warped around pliks of coin and dirt. "Salt," someone cried again. "There is no wall in it," Ulfric answered. "Only witness. Move." The words cut through panic because they did not promise what they could not give. People crawled, staggered, dragged one another. Freya stood where the hall narrowed, striking every hand that came near a child. Her axe haft cracked under the work. She turned it and used the blade flat to smash knuckles from cloth. A youth named Idis stumbled past her with another youth, Arni, gripping her sleeve. They were both old enough to be wed soon in a kinder year, and young enough to still look for permission before fear. Idis had a cut across her brow. Arni's cheek was white with ash. As Freya shoved them toward the door, something fell from inside Idis's cloak. A coin struck the floor. It rang too brightly. Freya saw it. Arni saw her see it. Idis froze, and that almost killed her. A dead hand shot through the split beside her ankle. Freya kicked the wrist aside and swept the coin into her own fist without thinking. It was warm. Not hearth warm. Skin warm, as if it had been held too long against a hidden place. Arni whispered, "Please." Freya's grip tightened around the coin. For one terrible heartbeat, she felt the weight of her own hidden brooch under cloth and mail, secret against her skin, silent because the world had not yet forced it to speak. Law stood in front of her. Shame stood behind her. The children screamed between them. "Move," she said. Arni pulled Idis into the yard. Freya did not call Ulfric. Not yet. She told herself the house was breaking. She told herself one coin could be dealt with after breath returned. She told herself many things that sounded like mercy and tasted like concealment. A board split under her boot. She jumped back as fingers raked the air below. The coin in her fist seemed to pulse once, or perhaps her own blood did. She shoved it into the open salt bowl by the door, where a few grains still clung to the wood. Astrid turned her blind face toward Freya. "What did you put there?" "A thing that fell."
"From the floor?"
Freya looked toward Idis and Arnie in the snow.
"From the living?"
Astrid did not answer. The house groaned, settling the question for later. Ulfric was still inside with Leif and Soren. The debt beam cracked from top to bottom, and the ledger nailed into it split through names. For a moment the carved debts looked like open mouths. A hand emerged below the beam holding a bone tag tied so tightly that the cord had cut into dead flesh. Ulfric struck it aside and drove everyone toward the door. "Out!" he shouted again. "Leave bedding, leave milk, leave everything." A woman sobbed. "The food, leave it. It is all we have." "No," Ulfric said, grabbing her by the shoulders and turning her toward the snow. "You are." They spilled into the yard under a moon blurred by cloud. The farm behind them shuddered as if the earth beneath it had begun to breathe. Boards hammered from below. The cow bellowed in the byre. Two men tried to cut the animal loose, but the wall between byre and hall splintered inward, and hands reached through the straw. Freya dragged them back before the dead took their wrists. "We cannot save it," she said. "We drank its milk," one man cried. "Then remember it alive." Ulfric counted survivors in the yard while the house broke behind him. He counted by faces, not tally marks. He counted children twice. He found blood, missing boots, broken fingers, one torn ear, no lost child. That should have felt like mercy. It did not. The saved children clung to adults whose eyes had already moved from gratitude to suspicion. Every person looked at every other person's sleeves, boots, belt knots, closed fists. The floor had opened under them, but the deeper break was above ground now. The farm had taught them to ask what each living hand might be hiding. Then his eyes found the salt bowl by the door. The coin lay in it, bright against the last grains. Ulfric looked at Freya. Freya looked back. Her hand hovered near her chest before she forced it down. "Whose?" he asked. The yard went silent, except for the house and the hands inside it. Idis began to shake. Arnie stood beside her, jaw clenched so hard he looked older than his father had ever been allowed to become. Freya stepped between them and Ulfric before she knew whether she meant to shield them from accusation or from herself. "They are alive," she said. "Ask them as living kin, not as already condemned." Ulfric's face closed. Behind him, the hollow farm cracked again. The dead kept reaching through the place that had almost fed them. They did not hold council inside the farm because the farm no longer had an inside. They gathered in the lee of a broken wall, with snow blowing through the yard, and the dead still worrying the floorboards behind them. The greed-bound hands rose and fell in the open doorway, grasping at air as if the whole house were drowning under the earth. No one went near enough to be taken. No one went far enough to forget. The children were kept behind the boats, but they could still see the adults forming a ring, and that was another kind of wound. Ulfric set the coin from the salt bowl on a flat stone between himself and the two youths. Idis and Arnie stood side by side. They were cousins by one branch and promised by another, not yet wed because winter, death, and exile had stripped ceremony down to survival. Idis had always been quick with needlework and quicker with her tongue. Arnie had helped row since the longhouse burned, though his palms split each time. Neither looked like a hoard keeper from a warning tale. They looked cold, frightened, and young. "Speak truth before law," Ulfric said. Arnie swallowed. "It was mine." Idis snapped. "No." Ulfric's gaze sharpened. It was ours, she said. If there is guilt, split it. Freya heard the words split and glanced toward the house. More boards cracked. The sound followed every sentence now. Ulfric said, "How many?" Neither answered. Freya stepped closer. "Answer before fear answers for you." Idis looked at her, and Freya saw recognition there, not of the brooch, not of the secret, of conflict. Idis knew Freya had seen the coin fall and had not shouted at once. "3," Idis said. Arni flinched. Ulfric saw it. "Not 3. 6, Arni whispered. A murmur ran through the survivors. "Where?" Ulfric asked. Idis pulled a small cloth packet from the seam of her underskirt. Arni drew another from inside his boot. Freya felt heat climb her neck. Boots, seams, hidden cloth. The old hiding places had become a language among them. Law knew the grammar. Shame knew it better. The people nearest them shifted backward, as if concealment itself could spread by touch. That hurt Idis more than Ulfric's questions. Freya saw it in the quick flare of her eyes. A moment earlier, Idis had been one of them. A girl who had hauled rope, fed children, and laughed once when the cow lived. Now one packet in her hand made the circle treat her like a door left open for the dead. Arni saw the same movement and bowed his head, as if shame had weight enough to bend him. The packets held small coins, not rich plunder. Some silver, some bronze, one thin gold piece bent at the edge. Enough to matter, not enough to save anyone. More dangerous for being both. Ulfric did not touch them. "Why?" "For dowry," Idis said. The word landed strangely in the yard. Dowry belonged to halls with lamps, witnesses, fathers arguing over cattle, mothers hiding tears, young women pretending not to listen. It belonged to a world where future had furniture in it. Idis looked at the coin packets as if they had betrayed her by looking so small. "My mother stitched a blue hem for me before the raid. She said no bride from our line would step into a hall like a beggar. The hem burned with the longhouse. The chest burned. The cup she saved for me broke under a dead man's foot. I kept those coins because I could not carry the hem." Arni nodded, staring at the snow. "My father promised a goat. Then he promised a net when the goat died. Then he promised his knife when the net tore. He died before he could give any of it. I thought if I brought nothing to her, every promise he made would be dead too." No one laughed now. Even Soren looked away into the falling snow. Freya felt the yard shift around them. The coins had not become safe. Nothing could make them safe. But the story around them had changed shape, and everyone knew it. A hidden hoard was easy to hate when it looked like greed. It was harder when it sounded like a mother's blue hem and a father's failed goat. Ulfric heard the change too. His face tightened because Mercy had found a road into the council before Law could close the gate. Soren gave a bitter laugh. "Dowry? For what house?" Idis turned on him. "For one we have not reached." The laugh died. Arni spoke faster, as if confession could outrun judgment. "We took them from the cellar before the last loads. Not much. Not the marked coin, not rings from the dead, just loose pieces. We thought if we lived, if there was ever a shore, ever a trader, ever a priest, ever anyone to witness us, we would not come empty, handed like beggars." "We are beggars," someone said. "No," Idis said, voice shaking. "We are kin. Kin should arrive with something." Freya's throat tightened. She thought of all the things the dead had stolen from the living before death ever touched them. Ceremony, pride, small future. The right to imagine a door and say ours. Ulfric said, "You hid gold after the law." "Coins," Arni said weakly. Ulfric's eyes hardened. "Do not make a smaller word and call it innocence." Freya stepped fully between them then. The movement drew every eye. "They are not Orm," she said. "They are not men stuffing belts while children starve. They are not laughing over treasure. They are two youths who wanted a future with witness and a threshold. If that is sin, then name the hunger that made it." "Freya," Ulfric warned. "No. If we call every hidden thing greed, we blind ourselves. They kept dowry coins because all other proof of tomorrow has been taken. That is not clean, but it is human." Astrid stood near the broken gate, cloak snapping in the wind. Human sins still open doors. Freya looked at her. "Then help us close this one without throwing children into winter." Idis whispered, "I am not a child." Freya did not turn. "Tonight you are young enough for someone to plead." The words struck Idis harder than accusation. Her face crumpled, then steadied into anger because anger was less naked. Ulfric crouched by the packets. Did anyone else know? Silence. Arni shook his head. Idis looked away. Ulfric followed her gaze to an older woman, Arni's aunt, who stood behind the others with her mouth pressed thin. The woman began to weep before he spoke. "I guessed," she said. "I told myself guessing was not knowing." The fracture widened. Not in boards now. In faces. A man pointed toward the farm. "Their coins," called those hands. Astrid said, "Do not claim more knowledge than we have." They kept coin. The dead rose. The dead were rising before we found them. But hidden gold keeps calling them.
"Maybe,"
Astrid said.
"maybe debt called."
Maybe hunger. Maybe the house. Maybe all. Ulfric looked at her sharply. "Can you say they are safe to keep among us?" Astrid's expression hurt.
"No. Can you say banishment will save us?"
"No." "Then we stand where law stands when sight fails." Freya knew that tone. It was the sound of Ulfric building a wall inside himself, stone by stone. Once finished, no plea would pass through. She lowered her voice. They confessed. After discovery. They surrendered the coins. After discovery. They wanted marriage, not hoard. They chose concealment after oath. Because fear taught them. Then fear must not rule us. The youth stood between them, no longer merely accused, but made into the place where every survivor's private hunger was being judged. Idis lifted her chin. "If there is punishment, give it to us. But do not say we loved gold more than kin." Ulfric looked at the broken farm, at the reaching hands, at the scattered survivors holding children, wounds, blankets, and dread. When he looked back, his face was older. "I believe you," he said. Hope flashed in Arni's eyes. Ulfric killed it by continuing. "And belief does not erase the oath." The council formed because people needed somewhere to put their fear. It was not a proper council. There was no hall, no high seat, no ale bowl, no carved staff passed from hand to hand. They stood in a broken farmyard while the false shelter cracked behind them and the sea breathed black beyond the fields. Yet the old habits gathered themselves. Elders came forward. Spear bearers made a rough ring. Mothers pulled children close. Freya stood with Idis and Arni behind her. Astrid stood apart, neither judge nor mercy, listening to what none of them could hear clearly. Ulfric placed the surrendered coins on the stone and poured a pinch of salt beside them. "Witness," he said, "not cure." The phrase had become hard from use. Some bowed their heads, some flinched from it. Soren spoke first. "Banishment is death," Ulfric answered. "Keeping Oathbreakers inside the ring may be death for all. They are barely grown." They swore with the rest. Arni's aunt fell to her knees. "Then cut their hair, mark their palms, make them walk behind the boats. Take their food share. Anything but winter. Another elder nodded. If you exile every frightened soul, you will lead no clan, only a law with bones around it, Freya said. Listen. Ulfric did not look at her. I am. No, you are counting danger. Count kin too. That made his eyes move to her. In them she saw exhaustion, anger, and the old wound beneath both. The buried gold, the brother, the first failure of mercy and pride wearing the same face. I count kin when I count the children who did not hide coins, he said. I count kin when I count the wounded who obeyed while hungry. I count kin when I count those who threw memory into the sea because law demanded it. Holdis, who had lost the silver ring in the water, looked down. Her bandaged leg trembled. Freya pressed on. And if law has no room for confession? Confession before discovery is different from confession after. Fear delays confession. Then fear has already ruled. A low drum sounded from the direction of the sea. Everyone turned. Nothing stood there. Only shore, dark weed, and the boats pulled above the tide. The sound came again, far off, or under snow, or inside memory. Since the islet, drums had become a language no one wanted to learn. The council changed under that sound. Men who had been pleading for mercy gripped spear shafts. Women who had wanted lenience pulled children behind their skirts. Fear made Ulfric's argument stronger without making it more righteous. Freya hated that too. The dead and the drums kept voting in every council, though no one had given them a place. Astrid whispered, "Do not answer them." No one had meant to, but several closed their mouths. Idis stepped around Freya. "Do not make her beg for us." Freya caught her wrist. "Stay." "No. If I am old enough to swear, I am old enough to speak." Idis faced Ulfric. "We broke oath. We did. I will not say we forgot. We remembered and hid anyway. But if all Oathbreakers must go, search every boot again. Search every seam. Search every mouth that said nothing when we all wanted something from that cellar." The yard went still. Arnie stared at her, terrified by the truth and proud of it. Ulfric said, "Do you accuse others?" "I accuse want," Idis said. "It is in all of us." Astrid's face tightened as if the words had struck an unseen bell. An elder spoke carefully. "That is why mercy matters. If want is in all, punishment must know measure." "Measure was the sea," Ulfric said. "They refused it. They feared arriving with nothing. We all arrive with nothing."
"No," Freya said. "You arrive with command. Leif arrives with record.
Astrid arrives with sight beyond sight. I arrive with an axe people trust. These two arrive with hands and hope. They tried to make hope small enough to hide." The words cut too near her own secret. She felt the hidden brooch under her layers like a second heartbeat. It did not burn. Not yet. Its silence was almost worse. Ulfric heard only the plea, not the confession inside it. If I spare them because their reason has tears on it, the next hidden coin will have a better story. A child's shoe, a mother's ring, a dead husband's trademark, a dowry, a charm, a memory. The dead do not care what name we give, concealment. Astrid said, "Careful." Ulfric turned. "Am I wrong?" "You are near truth. Near truth can still cut wrongly. Can you see a safer path?" Astrid's blind eyes lowered. "No." The answer settled like snow over a grave. Freya knew then that she would lose. She still stepped closer.
"Let me take them under guard," she said. "Let them walk beside me."
"Let every meal be witnessed. Let them sleep outside the circle but within call. If they break again, then send them out. Give mercy one night to prove it is not weakness. Arni began to cry. He turned his face away, as if tears were another oath broken. Ulfric's expression changed. Not softer. Worse. More wounded. You asked me to make your honor their wall. Yes. And if the wall breaks, then I answer. You cannot answer for hidden hearts. No one can. Then law must. The drums sounded again, lower this time. The greed, bound hands inside the farm, answered by scraping under broken boards. Coin clicked in the dark hall. Ulfric lifted the surrendered packets with a strip of cloth and handed them to Soren. To the sea. Now. Witnessed. Soren hesitated. And them? Ulfric looked at Idis and Arni. He did not look away from their faces when he spoke. That was the only mercy he allowed himself. Idis, daughter of Ranveig. Arni, son of Ketil. You broke the salt rite after oath. You concealed coin while the clan cast debt into the sea. You will not sleep within our ring. You will not row with our children. You will not eat from our counted stores. Arni's aunt wailed. Ulfric continued over it, voice roughening but not breaking. At dawn, you go north by the ridge path. You keep no coin. You carry one knife, one blanket each, and food for one day. If the gods still count mercy, let them count you. The clan cannot. Ulfric, Freya said. He closed his eyes once, opened them. Banishment. The council erupted. Pleas rose from every side. Arni's aunt crawled forward and caught Ulfric's boot. An elder shouted that exile would stain them all. Soren argued for binding instead. A mother asked whether her own son would be next if he lied from fear. Freya stood before Ulfric, shaking with fury she could not spend. Ulfric heard them. He did not change the sentence. That was how the fracture began, not with a shout, but with a leader refusing mercy while understanding exactly what mercy cost. They did not wait for dawn. The farm would not allow it. The greed-bound hands kept worrying through broken boards, and each scrape reminded the clan that law had been pronounced beside an open mouth. Ulfric changed the sentence only in timing, not in shape. The exiles would leave before the moon sank, while the ridge path still showed pale between drifts. Freya hated him for that and understood him, which made hatred less useful. Idis and Arni stood near the broken gate, while their kin prepared what little banishment allowed, one blanket each. One knife between them, after another plea won that small mercy. A heel of bread, a strip of smoked fish, no coin, no ring, no charm of metal. Arni's aunt tried to press a bone comb into Idis's hand, but Astrid touched her wrist. Bone remembers too, Astrid said softly. But this is not the thing that called. The aunt gave it anyway. Ulfric saw and did not forbid it. That mercy was so small it almost looked crueler than refusal. Leif stood apart with his knife and a piece of broken oarwood. He had not been asked to record. He did because not recording would make the banishment easier to lie about later. His hand resisted him. That frightened him more than the cold. He had recorded pyres while smoke made his eyes water. He had carved names after the storm spoke them back. He had cut lore into oars while children watched. Now the knife hesitated over living names, because living names could still turn and ask why the record had not saved them. He thought of the debt ledger nailed into the farm beam. That record had trapped owing inside wood until the house itself seemed to answer. Leif did not want his own marks to become another nail. He shifted the broken oar piece in his hand and chose the smoothest side, not because smooth wood was kinder, but because a crooked cut might one day be mistaken for contempt. Idis saw him carving. Do not make us villains. Leif looked up. I do not know how to carve that small. I mean it. So do I, Arni said. What will you write? Leif looked toward Ulfric, then Freya, then Astrid, then the farm whose dark doorway still opened and closed with reaching hands. Your names. The oath. The breaking. The sentence. Idis's mouth tightened. And why? That too, if I can keep it true. You cannot. No, Leif said, but I can keep it from becoming simple. She accepted that with a nod too old for her face. Ulfric came to stand before them. No council ring stood now, only survivors watching from under cloaks, each face deciding what kind of leader he had become. Freya stood close enough to intervene and too far to prevent anything. For a moment, Ulfric looked not at the exiles, but at the clan behind them. He saw the old aunt half broken by grief. He saw children learning that law could send away people they had shared milk with that morning. He saw men who would obey because obedience spared them choosing. He saw women who would remember this sentence each time he spoke of kin. He knew then that banishment would not remove danger from the clan. It would plant another danger inside it. Still, he stepped forward very slowly anyway, alone. Empty your hands, Ulfric said. Idis opened hers. Arni opened his. Freya searched them herself because she did not trust anyone else to do it without cruelty. She checked sleeves, boots, belts, hair knots, hems. Idis endured it with a lifted chin. Arni trembled. Freya found no metal. Clean, she said, and the word hurt. Ulfric nodded. Then go. Arni looked north. The ridge path was a pale wound between stones. Beyond it lay trees bent under snow and darkness thick enough to hide anything. If we find shelter? Ulfric's face did not move. Live. If we see people? Tell them not to take gold from beneath floors. A few survivors made angry sounds. The answer was not gentle, but it was not mockery. It was all the wisdom he could give without taking back judgment. Idis looked at Freya. Would you have spared us? Freya felt every gaze turn. Ulfric's most of all. Yes, she said. Would that have been right? Freya could have answered quickly. She did not. I do not know. Idis seemed to value that more than comfort. She stepped forward and pressed her forehead briefly to Freya's shoulder. Freya stiffened, then closed one arm around her. Under cloth and mail, the hidden brooch lay cold. Arni embraced his aunt. The woman tried to hold him by force when the moment ended. Soren had to loosen her fingers one by one. No one called her weak. No one dared. Astrid stood near the gate, face turned toward the ridge path. Do not follow lights that move like coins, she said. Arni swallowed. What does that mean? I do not know enough to say more. Idis gave a small, bitter smile. Then I will distrust all lights. It is easier. Distrust is not the same as wisdom, Astrid said. No, but it is lighter to carry. They went. Not far at first. Banishment was not a saga stride into noble distance. It was two young people walking badly through snow while everyone who loved them watched and did nothing. Arni stumbled before the gate. Idis caught him. He pulled free, ashamed, then took her hand when the next drift rose above his knees. Freya watched until her eyes burned from cold. Ulfric watched too. That mattered and did not help. Leif carved. Idis, daughter of Randveig. Arni, son of Ketil. He paused before the final phrase. Oathbroken was true. Banished was true. Exiled under moon was true. None of them held the whole wound. He listened to the wind, to the farm, to the quiet sobs around him. Then he cut the words that had come into his mouth when Arni looked at the ridge. Gone into winter. The phrase was not verdict enough for Ulfric, not mercy enough for Freya, not warning enough for Astrid, not grief enough for the aunt kneeling in snow. That was why it was true. Leif carved it beneath their names. Freya read over his shoulder. Do not let those words make them already dead. They do not. They sound like burial. They are not burial. Leif touched the fresh cuts. They are absence with breath still in it. Ulfric heard. His face tightened. The exiles reached the first rise. For a moment the aurora showed faint behind clouds, not a road now, only green bruising in the sky. Idis turned once. Arni did not. Then snow and ridge shadow took them. No one spoke until they were truly gone. Then the clan began to divide without moving. Some drifted toward Freya. Some stayed near Ulfric because fear preferred harsh walls to open mercy. Some stood between, which was the loneliest place. Astrid listened to the division like a seam splitting in cloth. The split made no sound a child could name, but every adult heard it and feared where it would lead. Behind them the hollow farm groaned. We cannot remain, Ulfric said. Freya turned on him. We could not remain before you cut two from us. I cut rot from a wound. No, she said. You cut flesh because rot might come. His eyes flashed. And you would bandage rot because it cried. The words struck both of them silent. Ulfric looked as if he wanted to take them back. Freya looked as if she wanted him to try so she could refuse. Astrid stepped between them, not as peace but as interruption. Enough. The house still reaches. The farm answered with a long scrape from inside. Leif held the carved wood close. He had recorded their names as gone into winter. Already the words felt heavier than the wood could hold. They left the hollow farm before dawn, but the farm did not leave them. It followed in the smell of damp wool. Milk turned sour on children's sleeves, ash under fingernails, and the imagined scrape of hands beneath every board they later stepped on. They did not burn the stead. There was no pitch to spare, and no certainty that fire would do more than answer bodies while leaving debt to breathe elsewhere. Astrid had said enough on the islet. Fire freed flesh. Debt remained. So they walked. The boats were dragged along the shore when the coast allowed it, and shoved through black water when stone forced them out. No one sang. No one spoke of Helgadra as if it had a door waiting. The auroral road had thinned into cloud by morning, leaving only the memory of direction and the insult of hope. Freya walked near the rear, where stragglers gathered and resentment liked to hide. She could feel the clan looking at her differently, some with gratitude for her plea, some with anger because mercy had failed, some with suspicion because she had stood too long between law and the guilty. Ulfric walked near the front. He did not look back often. When he did, he counted. Freya knew the movement of his eyes. He counted children, wounded, weapons, salt, rope, faces. He did not count the two who were gone. Or perhaps he counted them so deeply that looking toward the ridge would break him. Astrid walked until her strength failed, then sat in a boat while others hauled. Her head nodded with exhaustion. Leif kept near her with the carved names wrapped in cloth. He did not offer to read them. No one asked. By afternoon they found a hollow under black pines, mean shelter, but shelter enough to stop before legs gave out. Snow packed hard between roots. The sea lay below, grey and restless. Drums sounded once far away while they made camp. Everyone froze. The sound did not repeat. Wind in a hollow log, Soren said. No one believed him. Some thanked him anyway. Ulfric ordered watches. He ordered a second search of packs. This time no one argued openly. That did not mean obedience had healed. It meant fear had learned to lower its voice. Freya searched with the others. She turned out pouches, shook blankets, checked boots, hair ties, hems. Her own body became a locked room she refused to enter. The brooch lay hidden where it had lain since the salt rite, a small golden memory against her skin. She had meant many times to throw it away. Meaning had become another weak oath. She remembered the moment she first hid it, the quick hand, the little weight, the excuse that it had belonged to a child and therefore could not be greed. She had built that excuse carefully, stone by stone, until it looked like grief instead of theft. Tonight Idis had spoken of a mother's hem, and Freya had heard her own defense in another mouth. That was why she had fought so hard. Not only for mercy. For proof that hidden gold could still have a human reason. But human reason had not stopped the hands in the floor. When Soren approached with a torch and a tired expression, she stared at him until he chose another line of work. If he suspected, he did not speak. That silence bound him to her in a way she did not want. Night came early under the pines. Astrid slept beside the smallest fire, if sleep could be said of a body that flinched at every spark. Freya sat near her, axe across her knees, watching Ulfric on the far side of camp. He stood alone beyond the ring, face turned north. No one had gone to him. A leader could be obeyed and still be abandoned. Leif settled nearby with his wood and knife. "She will dream," he said quietly. Freya looked at Astrid. "She always dreams. Not like this."
"You know that?"
"No." He tucked the carved names under his cloak. "I fear it. I am learning the difference too slowly." Freya almost smiled. The almost hurt. Astrid's breath changed near midnight. At first it was only a hitch. Then her fingers dug into the snow. Her blind eyes moved beneath scarred lids, searching in a place none of them could enter. Freya leaned closer. Astrid had refused a thicker blanket earlier, saying warmth made dreams too easy to mistake for comfort. Now she shivered as if lying in water. Frost silvered her hair. Her lips shaped names no one could hear. The camp leaned toward her despite itself, because even those who feared her dreams feared missing the warning more. Astrid. The seer did not wake. In her dream, snow lay gold under a black sky. She knew it was dream because the exiles left no human tracks. Idis and Arni walked ahead with blankets around their shoulders. But behind them, the snow shone smooth, each step swallowed by pale glitter before the next could form. They did not turn. They did not hear her. Astrid stood without body and watched from the ridge above them. A drum sounded under the earth. Then another. Between the drum beats came a growl, low, patient, not hunger only, recognition. A shape moved behind the exiles where the path narrowed. At first Astrid thought it was shadow cast by moonlight. Then the shadow lifted its head. It was a wolf, large as a pony, thin as famine, its ribs bright through fur that was not fur but beaten gold laid over bone. Its eyes were dark holes. Its mouth did not drip blood. It clicked softly, coin against tooth. Astrid tried to speak and had no mouth. The wolf lowered its nose to the place where Arni's step had vanished. It breathed in. The snow glittered brighter. Idis reached for Arni's hand without knowing why. He took it. The wolf followed, not running, not pouncing, following with the certainty of debt. Drums rolled under the path. The wolf's ears twitched toward them. Far ahead, the auroral light opened for a moment between clouds, green and cold. The exiles moved toward it because every lost thing wants a road. The wolf growled again. In camp, Astrid gasped. Freya caught her shoulders. "Wake!" Astrid's hand clamped around Freya's wrist with surprising strength. Gold Wolf. Leif went still. Ulfric crossed the camp in 3 strides.
What did you see?
Astrid's mouth worked. She seemed to taste snow that was not there. Following them.
Idis and Arni?
Freya asked. Astrid nodded once. Ulfric's face emptied.
Can we call them back?
Someone whispered. Astrid flinched. I did not say they could be saved by calling. Then why tell us? Because silence would make the dream mine alone. A drum sounded from below the pines. This time, no one blamed wind. Freya stood too quickly. The hidden brooch shifted under her clothes. Pain flared. It was sudden and bright, a bite of heated metal against skin. She nearly cried out. Her hand flew toward her chest, then stopped before reaching the place. Too many eyes, too much lore. Too much of her own voice still ringing from the council, defending hidden coins while hiding gold against her heart. She turned the movement into a reach for her axe strap. Freya? Leif asked. Loose buckle, she said. The lie came easily. That frightened her more than the pain. The brooch burned again, smaller this time, as if an ember had learned her shape. She pressed her arm tight across her ribs and bent as though checking the strap near her waist. Under cover of the motion, she pulled cloth between metal and skin. It did not help enough. Astrid's blind face turned toward her. Freya did not breathe. The seer's attention hung there for a heartbeat, then shifted back toward the dark beyond camp. Maybe she had sensed only pain. Maybe she had sensed nothing. Maybe mercy still existed in what people chose not to name. Ulfric ordered the camp awake. No one sleeps through drums. Packs ready. Children between armed hands. No one argued. Freya stepped back into shadow. Her skin throbbed beneath the hidden brooch. She wanted to tear it free and fling it into snow. She wanted to keep it until the world gave back one thing that did not become law. She hated Idis and Arni for being exiled. She hated Ulfric for banishing them. She hated herself because the burning at her breast answered both sides. The drums sounded again, deeper. Astrid whispered,
It is still following.
Who? Soren asked, though everyone knew. Astrid did not answer with explanation. She only turned her face north, toward the vanished exiles and the road no one could trust. Under the drums, somewhere beyond sight, the Gold Wolf growled. Thank you for listening. This chapter ends here, but the story continues. Follow the series for new chapters, and when you are ready, explore the other worlds and storylines waiting beyond this one. If you enjoyed this episode, leaving a like or a comment helps more listeners find the story.